All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, like it or not, but college football could be at the crossroads as it's no longer going to be an NCAA thing, in my opinion. Got to buckle up and get ready for it to be more like an SEC and Big Ten thing. You know, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti have joined forces, and they're really working like two mob bosses of two mob families who have combined their powers in an attempt to just simply dominate any and everything in their path. The Big Ten and the SEC and their desire to expand the college football playoff from 12 teams to 16 teams. And we just had one dose of this 12-team college football playoff. And of course, they're looking for the 16-team format with both the SEC and Big Ten each getting four automatic bids a piece. Okay. Now, the Big 12 and the ACC, they appear to be on board with a 16-team playoff, but they're looking at it like this with that 5+11 model, five conference champions and 11 at large bids. And I think that would be better, in my opinion. But nonetheless, one thing is for sure, the ACC and the SEC both need to go to nine conference games. However, some athletic directors in the SEC are only in favor of going to nine if an additional loss wouldn't hurt them when it comes to trying to get to the college football playoff. Not only that, but if they go to nine, they want four, or some of them at least want four automatic bids for the playoff. So you've got this back and forth, okay, once again, about the expanding or attempting to expand the college football playoff. And to me, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It is just another example of the lack of leadership in the NCAA, as at the end of the day, the inmates are running the asylum. Okay. The SEC and the Big Ten are looking to dictate to the rest of the room. And in the case of the SEC, they're not thrilled that neither of the last 2 years saw them win, more or less even play for the national championship. And I don't care what anybody says, okay? The SEC was not thrilled that they got three bids for the playoff last year. Okay, we saw the Big Ten get four, SEC got three. Okay, ACC got two, the Big 12 got one. Nor were they thrilled about the fact that, hey, we saw Boise State out of the Mountain West get themselves a first round bye. Now we got straight seeding going forward for this year's playoff. All right. And if you don't get some real leadership in the room soon, okay, this thing could be prepared to go off of the rails at some point in regards to college football. Both the SEC and the Big Ten are looking to do whatever they want. And they're basically telling everybody else that either you're with us or you're against us. And at the end of the day, they're saying there's absolutely nothing that you can do to stop it. Now, whether it's going to be a 12-team playoff or a 16-team playoff, a tournament with the five highest ranked conference champions, along with seven, if it was to stay at 12, or of course, in this case, 11 at large bids, if this thing goes to 16, in my opinion, would work. Okay. Of course, there's going to be somebody that's going to complain about it, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's feasible and I feel like it's something that can work. It will be better than the SEC and Big Ten both just getting four automatic bids just because to me, it's one of those you can't just simply start handing out bids uh, based on the conference that somebody's affiliated with. Like you're treating it like it's a participation award. I'm not a fan of that. Okay. And let's say you get a four-loss SEC team. Are you going to sit up there and say that four-loss SEC team is more deserving than a two-loss team from the Big 12 or ACC? There's going to be a lot of back and forth over those scenarios as well. Now, look at the NCAA tournament, whether it's men's basketball or women's basketball. Whoever wins a conference tournament, they get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. And that's okay because, listen, we've seen teams not win their conference tournament and it still worked out fine. I mean, look, you look at Auburn this past season in men's basketball. They were the number one seed. They were the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They didn't win the SEC tournament. That nod went to Florida, and of course, Florida, went on to win the national championship. They beat Auburn at the Final Four, but nonetheless, you got to earn it. You can't just give people bids just based off of the league that they're associated with and getting back to college football. That's basically college basketball, rather. That's basically what we saw with the SEC this year. Because, in my opinion, they really did not deserve all of those teams for the NCAA tournament. But nonetheless, in regards to college football, Pandora's box has officially been open and it ain't going to be closed anytime soon. You look at it as far as the power brokers, the people that are calling the shots for college football in the playoff. These are the same people, okay, who complained about the BCS after they agreed to the system, complained about the 14 playoff after they agreed to it, and complained about the 12-team playoff before it even got off the ground. And when it gets to 16, I got news for all of you. The bickering is only going to intensify. This thing is never going to stop. All of this is a desire to get more money. And that's at the end of the day what it's all about. This is why we have a coast to coast Big Ten now, when the Big Ten, for many years was a Midwest thing. This is why things are out of whack in the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, that now includes schools from Texas as well as California. We've got a coast to coast Big 12 when the Big 12 was once the remnants of the Big Eight in the South or in some of the Southwest Conference. Okay. Now the Big 12 is all over the place. And of course, the remnants of the old Pac 12, the Big East, and the Southwest Conference are spread across the country as well. So, what we are currently seeing right now in college football and collegiate athletics as a whole is what the NFL, NBA, and other major professional sports leagues would look like if there was no commissioner, no checks and balances system among the team owners. And at the end of the day, things are about to get away from us. You just look at it. It would be very tough to get everybody on board collegiately. Why? Because school presidents and conference commissioners and athletic directors are not about to go out there and hold each other accountable. As in the case of the ADs and the school presidents, they answer to the powerful alumni and the boosters from the institutions that they work for. While the conference commissioners, their real only job is to go out there and hemorrhage cash for their members in the form of television deals, as well as lobbying for tournament bids for their respective leagues. And it's all about getting their respective leagues exposure. That is it. That's who they're married to. So you look at this, and as the Big Ten and the SEC are looking to pull ahead of everybody else, to me, I really feel there's a need for the Big 12 and ACC to work together. Of course, before the original Pac-12 folded, there was talks about an agreement, working agreement between the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC. And of course, we know where that went. Okay. But nonetheless, I think that the Big 12 and ACC really should work together. They might not be in steerage on this ship, but they damn sure ain't first class passengers either on this playoff vessel, as that privilege is going to the Big Ten and the SEC. And of course, if you're the Big 12 and ACC, you've got to find a way to make this work, and you've got to find a way to keep your respective things flowing. Like I've said before, the need for the group of five or maybe soon group of six to work together. A lot of that hinges on this Pac-12 media deal and whether or not that they can get one or two more schools on board with them and see where it goes from there. Maybe the Pac-12 leverages themselves to basically almost get that de facto automatic bid from the group of six every single year for the playoff. We've got to wait and see. But excuse me. But to me, I feel that all of the power conferences should go out there and play 9 conference games. Excuse me. It's one of those. It's time for the SEC and the ACC to get with the times, and I think at this point, the ACC really wants 9, but I think they're waiting to see what the SEC does. Okay, but you look at it. The ACC has 17 members. The SEC has 16. Enough with this Mickey Mouse stuff. The SEC is more worried about getting rewarded for their losses because of the conference, the strength of the conference, if you will, as opposed to going out there and winning games. It's bull. You got to go out there and take care of your business. That's the bottom line each and every Saturday. I know it's competitive, this, that, and the third, but you know what? At the end of the day, that's why you got to go out there and you got to do your part to win games and take care of your business. But at the end of the day, there's a need for more balance across the board. I know probably all of the group of five wouldn't want to go to 9 conference games because, in their case, it's one of those where they try to use those games against the big boys, if you will, to kind of fundraise. And I totally get it. I totally understand it. And I totally respect it. But at least from the Power Four standpoint, everybody needs to be on the same page and playing 9 conference games. College football, in my opinion, is rapidly becoming a 100 car runaway freight train. And the only thing that I can tell people at this point is to pull over any other trains in front of it to the sidings and clear as much track as possible. But when this thing crashes and burns at some point, and it's going to, may not be today or may not be tomorrow, but at some point it's going to happen, in my opinion, and it's going to be very hectic and chaotic. And I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that there's a lack of leadership, and it's like, you know what, screw everybody else. I'm looking out for me, and that's it. And again, they're treating college football like it's pro football from the money aspect. But what makes pro football go and what makes all of these other professional leagues go, they have revenue sharing and they have leadership. College football has neither. Okay. Not only that, but we have just yet to see the effects for college athletes at the FBS level after this first 12-team playoff. We've heard from kids before at the FCS level, how draining it can be, and we don't know all of the effects, and we're ready to tinker with that sauce after just one season. Why? Because the ESPNs of the world are willing to pony up more bread, and at the end of the day, this is all that these people at these schools care about. This is all that these people in these conferences that are so-called running these conferences and leading these conferences care about, because this is what happens when you have television people and business people running these conferences and these schools now, not sports people, not people who are looking out for the kids. But at the end of the day, is college football going to get too big for its own britches and get too big for its own good? There's a possibility. Okay. I'm not going to sit up here and say yes or no, but at the end of the day, I think anything is possible. And I think it's the greed, in my opinion, that is driving everything. And I think more than anything else, they've got to find a way to agree on a format that is going to be beneficial to everyone and not just the people at the top. You can't just sit up there, try to pump people into doing what you want because you're a big guy at the table. It needs to be beneficial for everyone, in my opinion. And you look at the SEC, and I talked about the SEC and the ACC, and they need to go to a 9-game schedule. But you got to wonder how that would affect, the schools at the FCS level as well as the group of six. And the reason why I say it is this: a lot of them, get paid to go play games against, the ACC or the SEC. And of course, that would be one less opportunity for them to do that as well. Just my opinion. All right. We've heard about a potential SEC versus Big Ten challenge. I think that would be great. And I think we should also have an ACC versus Big 12 challenge. Again, like I said, you need more balance across the board. I really feel all of these schools in the power conferences should play 9 conference games. On top of that, they should play one game every single year against another power conference. Okay, I know we already see that in some shapes and forms in the rivalries, or some of the rivalries that still do exist. Florida State and Florida, of course, ACC versus SEC. Notre Dame, USC. How long is that going to last? We don't know. But nonetheless, just throwing a couple of games out there. But nonetheless, we need to see that, okay? Because at the end of the day, you got to go out there, do what you got to do. And, I know coaches are worried about, strength of schedule. I know coaches are worried about their teams and schools are worried about their team getting to the playoff. But at the end of the day, regardless of what conference that you play in, if you're a power conference, you go out there and take care of your business. You go out there and win, guess what? And win your league, you're getting to the show. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But college football is great, but it could be greater, in my opinion. And I think at the end of the day, for it to be greater, it needs the true leadership that it deserves, which is a commissioner. Will it happen? I highly doubt it because I don't simply see everybody being on board with it. You look at it, the 16-team playoff is coming. It's not a matter of if, it's more like when. And like I said, these guys are chasing the almighty dollar. This is why you got a USC in the Big Ten. This is why you got a Washington in the Big Ten. This is why, you have a Utah in the Big 12. And I can just keep going right down the list geographically about things that simply don't make any more sense about college football and, of course, how it's affecting other collegiate athletic sports. But nonetheless, people are chasing money, and that's what it's all about. And nobody is going to look at that far down the future to see what could be coming. But at the end of the day, that greed could, at some point, be the detriment to things. But nonetheless, the 16-team playoff looks like it's going to be inevitable. In my opinion, let the five conference champions in. Okay, get your 11 at large bids based on merit, not by league. And I think it would be something that would be beneficial to everybody. Okay, because I guarantee you, if you allow the Big Ten to get four automatic bids, the SEC to get four automatic bids, guess what? They're still going to complain about not getting five, six, or even possible seven teams from those respective leagues. This is not going to stop. Once you get to 16, the next thing you know, it's going to be 17, and it's going to be, oh, let's have a play-in game just to get to the field of 16. Oh, let's have two play-in games to get to the field of 16. Before you know it, before you blink, you're going to be at 20. And then once you get to 20, there's going to be somebody else complaining, and this thing is only going to continue to cascade. But again, prime example of what happens when you don't have true leadership at the top. College football is great, but at the end of the day, it could be greater if everybody that is quote unquote in charge cared about the sport as opposed to just simply caring about the money. My 2 cents. Maybe it won't account for much, but you know what? College football is great, but it also can be better. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, it is greatly appreciated. Also, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. And also, if you're on Instagram, just like it is with Twitter, you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. You give me that follow, I will definitely give you that follow right back. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.